Welcome to our presentation video. Today we'll be doing an in-depth analysis of the film sequence from the film A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, directed by Lili Amirpour. The following video will be firstly providing you with a bit of context surrounding the film as a whole, as well as an explanation of the context within the specified sequence. We'll also be talking about film form and specific cinematic elements.
Film context. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is written and directed by, as well as starring, Iranian-American filmmaker Lili Amirpour. Amirpour's black and white Iranian spaghetti western is spoken in Farsi and set in the ambiguous Bad City. According to popular film review website Rotten Tomatoes, this Iranian vampire western received a positive critical response of 95%, and it earned an estimated $544,032 in the domestic box office revenue. The story is based around a darkly charming Iranian vampire. Amirpour wrote the script in Persian and originally chose Iran as the setting for her film, whilst featuring an entirely Iranian cast. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night was shot in Southern California. However, being set in Iran gives the film an aesthetic nature prominently influenced by these two largely different places. The film takes place in the Bad City, which is a place with some post-industrial desolation and almost blasé attitude about death, drugs, and violence. It largely deals with these themes of gender politics, Iranian cultural identities, and justice. Delving into the current feminist aesthetic paints contemporary Iran with women challenging gendered expectations. The film is considered a feminist film due to the nature of Sheila Van's character, known as the Girl. She is a vampire girl who preys on immortal men so that she can protect the female residents of the Bad City from the violence of the patriarchy. The patriarchy is highlighted in the monstrous nature of Saeed, a drug dealer. Sequence context. The scene takes place earlier in the film. A chain of events lead the audience to becoming familiar with the characters at play: the young female vampire, a lonesome, slightly ominous immortal being, and Saeed, a misogynistic pimp and drug dealer. This scene depicts Van's character isolated and alienated from society, living somewhat contently on her own. The audience sees her dancing lonesomely in what appears to be her home, full of personal items that a young mortal woman might have. The music "Dancing Girls" by Fahara blares loudly as a justice-seeking immortal being dances slowly in her room. The next scene displays her standing innocently on the street, where she's greeted by Saeed, who invites her to his place. The quiet and contemplative vampire stands and observes Saeed's behavior. He counts his money, does a line of drugs, lifts weights, and undoes his jacket, dancing sexually as the vampire watches and preys upon his toxic masculine behavior. Saeed approaches her, creeping up to her slowly as she appears quiet and innocent. Her perceived vulnerability lures him in. She allows him to trace her face and mouth, displaying her fangs to bite. She then turns the tables by tracing his lips with a finger and making him suck it. Thus, in making him suck the finger and she bit off, not only symbolically castrating him, but also mimicking a sexual dominance that he uses against women, against him. In a swift moment, he is at the mercy of her. She, an anti-hero who uses monstrous feminism to free the Bad City of one of the biggest criminals, a drug dealer and pimp who performs toxic masculinity and violence. In this, vampire's true nature is shown. She uses her immortal curse to prey upon the toxic men of the Bad City.
Throughout her film A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night 2014, Lili Amirpour adopts a range of different filmic elements in order to create pattern and form. Within the specified extract, Amirpour elects to utilize both lighting and sound techniques that are consistent with the overall film. She also employs narrative elements to disrupt the prior presented narrative to the viewer. By utilizing both elemental and narrative factors within the film, particularly through the extract, Amirpour is able to create form within the film. Within the elected extract, Amirpour reveals to the audience for the initial time that the woman in the chador is actually a vampire. By revealing this detail, Amirpour shocks the audience with an unexpected turn in events. This therefore disrupts the pattern of the form which has been created throughout the film. It does, however, satisfy the viewer's expectations that there is something more sinister to this character. Amirpour was able to create this sense of suspicion through the film by creating a pattern with stylistic elements that surround the character. She is often seen lurking in shadows within wide shots, such as the one at the beginning of the extract, which allows Amirpour to foreshadow that she has some sort of sinister nature. As Place and Peterson, 1974, argue, filmmakers often use shadows in conjunction with characters in order to depict them as holding ulterior motives or to be a symbol of secrecy. By using these stylistic choices when depicting the character, Amirpour is able to use narrative elements within this extract to create a form for her film. By revealing this detail of the narrative, Amirpour is also able to pivot the audience's preconceived conceptions of the film regarding the title. As Abdi and Kellerfell 2017 display, the title of the film suggests a sense of weakness. A girl should not be walking home alone at night, but by revealing this detail in the plot, Amirpour disrupts the form of the film as she has changed the pattern which exists. The girls are no longer weak and subsequently can walk home alone at night because the girl in the chador is a vampire and is protecting the city. This unexpected turn in the narrative displayed within the extract displays the way in which Amirpour is able to develop the form of the film and the effect which it has on its audience. Throughout the selected extract, Amirpour uses silence as a filmic device in order to develop the form of the film. The selected scenes are mostly silent when set in the street, apart from the movement sounds and dialogue. However, they are drastically juxtaposed by the accompanying scenes that are undercut by the music that the characters are listening to, and the score which represents Shahid's trauma.
Oriental dress, the one you love is a mess. White light, it's all a dream, lost in the fire, this golden obsession.
This helps to create a sense of repetition throughout the film where oftentimes scenes are underscored only by dialogue and movement sounds rather than music. The technique helps to develop unity through the film as it fulfills the function of providing signposts to the audience. As Colzaig Wilson 2009 argues, silence in the films provides a way for filmmakers to create suspense within the audience. Amirpour employs this technique, in turn developing the form of the film, as the repetition that the silent scenes foreshadow a shocking narrative element throughout the film. This allows viewers' expectations to be fulfilled. Within the extract, the silence of the girl and Shahid walking foreshadows that something bad will happen at the house. However, it is unexpected that it happens to Shahid rather than the girl. By employing filmic techniques and elements consistently and repeatedly throughout the film, Amirpour is able to develop the film form.
Broken glass on the bottom of my heels.
The genre of this film is Iranian vampire western, which is shot in a black and white lens. In this sequence, silence is a prevalent tool used to emphasize particular facial expressions as well as accrue pent-up suspense. In the very beginning of the sequence, silence perpetuates the notion that something mysterious and unknown is occurring. Accompanied with the lonely imagery of the protagonist walking along the street pathway at night, very little sound appears. Silence enables the audience to focus our attention on the imagery more, narrowing our focus and enabling us to watch more tentatively. The sound at the start of the sequence primes the audience's expectation, accruing suspense for what will occur in future. The use of sound in this sequence amplifies the overall message being communicated.
Cinematography. The cinematography of this sequence unveils the girl as a powerful, blood-sucking, and vengeful vampire. The entirety of this film is in black and white, matching the tone and horror themes relevant to this film. The Bad City is depicted as a desolate, post-industrial place, teeming with indifference to the raging issues and inherent death, violence, and drugs it perpetuates. Lighting in this film displays harsh shadows. in which the vampire girl lives and feeds in. This makes the bad city seem dark, eerie, and mysterious. The shades of black and white make the city appear almost bleak and without a hope of colour. When the vampire visits Saheed's home, she is kept in the dark visually by the harsh shadows that make her face obstructed. Saheed is illuminated more brightly at the start of the encounter. The shadows darken on Saheed's appearance as he loses power and brighten on the vampire girl to show her full identity. After she bites his finger off, the lighting on him darkens as he meets his fate and dies. Throughout the sequence, there's a mix of wide, mid, and close-up shot types. The pattern that follows in the sequence is that each scene takes place with a wide shot to show the environment the character is in. To follow this, there's a range of mid and close-ups, especially when the vampire is in Saheed's home. The audience sees a full picture of the events that happen, and then a close-ups to show a more intimate invitation into the horror of the scene.
Throughout the film, Amirpour employs a specific and distinguishable style of editing. The way Amirpour weaves together both shots and the score of the film allows her to deepen the visual metaphors that underlie the narrative of the film. Within the specified sequence, the editing process allows her to create an alternate reality, atmosphere to the girl in the chador residing in her room. By manipulating the speed of the film by slowing it down and using shots that fall out of focus and refocus repetitively while the girl is dancing, Amirpour is able to disrupt the audience's expectations. The rest of the film and the sequence that takes place on the streets of the bad city are in real time. However, this use of editing, which accompanies the scene in her bedroom, allows Amirpour to develop the character as a girl who, in her own time, has an oasis, and that in her bedroom by herself is an alternate version of the girl that she is when she is working in the setting of the bad city. As Stadler 2008 argues, by moving the shot in and out of focus, directors are able to control the meaning of a setting, which Amirpour does, in turn creating a scene that depicts the setting as a teenage girl's bedroom as her sanctuary, opposed to her alternate personality, a feminist vigilante. The style which Amirpour employs within the film is both distinct and unique to her as a filmmaker. Amirpour does borrow stylistic elements from the genre of Western films, however her vivid sense of place and nebulous themes are distinct to her style as a filmmaker. Depicted within the chosen extract, Amirpour's style often encompasses a lack of dialogue to ensure audience focus is on the movement of the characters and the voice which she projects. Amirpour's style is centralized to her sparse dialogue in order to make room for her voice as a director, which within A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night presents her feminist agenda. Amirpour's style also often takes stereotypes of film and transforms them to visualize her own agenda, such as the stereotypical characters of the prostitute and the pimp, the virgin whore dichotomy, and the connotations that A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night conjure up. As Kozratari argues, Amirpour's filmmaking is driven by her style, transforming stereotypes and shocking audiences with the revelation that characters do not meet their cliché, which we see within the extract when the girl takes vengeance against Saeed. Amirpour's filmmaking style is imperative in her ability to project her voice within the film.
Narrative. In the beginning of the film, the girl observes Saheed lurking in the shadows of the bad city. She is later shown in her home, dancing to a pop song. Her room is typically what we expected of a teenage girl's room, covered in musical posters full of pop cultural references, unveiling her true interests. She, the vampire girl, later appears on the street, where she is invited by Saheed to come home with him. She observes as he dances, does drugs, lifts weights. Her expression is that of disgust and anguish. She baits him in with her quietness, which he misconceives as her being innocent and vulnerable. He traces her face with his finger. This is where she exposes her fangs and her true vampire identity. She sucks his finger, but in a moment, turning the tables to mimic the sexual dominance that he uses against women, She bites his finger off to symbolically castrate him. At the start, she allows him to feel in control, playing the part of an innocent girl. The turn of events allow for the development of the vampire girl's identity to be shown. She feeds on the misogynistic men that she observes. She is powerful by masking her vampire and a vampire identity to lure, in this case, men who believe her to be no threat. This is where she attacks, and her true nature is shown.
Filmed in California, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night takes place in the imaginary Bad City in Iran and constantly straddles the line between East and West, reality and fantasy. The violence, poverty, and isolation of working-class residents of Bad City showcases the grim reality of existence in the city, but Amirpour locates the film neither fully in a host country or her homeland of Iran. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is presented in black and white, lending the film a ghostly quality. Choosing to film void of colour strands the film outside of any clear temporality or geography and further emphasises the relatively similar between day and night, destabilising viewers' ability to place the film within a spatial or national context. Bad City is representative of a liminal land to such an extent that it departs from our terrestrial world altogether. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night takes place in a twilight zone that is both familiar and disturbing. This twilight zone serves as a visual setting of the third space, but Bad City proves that spaces of liminality are as constricting as any home or host country. The woman in this sequence has quite compact and dark makeup applied to her face. This makeup accentuates specific emotions she is feeling, enabling the audience to easily perceive particular facial expressions she releases throughout the sequence. This is vital to be able to predict future actions that progress into the film. The makeup is also emphasized around the eyes, clearly indicating to the audience that we should remain focused on her vision and place ourselves from her point of view. In regards to costumes, we can identify a large contrast between the male and female character. Amirpour sets the audience's expectations to predict that the male will be the perpetrator, where the opposite effect actually occurs. In this sequence, the lighting is very ominous and low. This helps to emphasize the storyline and overall genre of the film. As an audience, we are entranced into this habitat of a supernatural character, vicariously living through her experiences, emotions, and motives. In conclusion, we have provided an insightful analysis of a sequence extrapolated from A Girl Walks Home Alone. We noted some prominent aspects that arose throughout the film and particular sequences. These were used to reveal some broader social issues that extended beyond the fictional narrative. We discussed film elements including mise-en-scene, genre, sound, narrative, style, editing, and cinematography. We discussed the complexities of the particular characters developed within this film and how they had an effect on the audience. We also distilled meaning and reflection from the excerpt, demonstrating its vast complexity.